In the studio, it is Lieutenant Colonel Jeremy Parker, Mississippi National Guard. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Paul.
And it is good seeing you.
Good to see you.
Are you full time? What are you? Do you?
Yes, sir. I'm full time National Guard.
Do you have a chance to get away for a while and do something? Do a little hunting, fishing, or
I do both of those and enjoy them very much. But yes, sir, I'm full time. I'm our deputy director of military support here in Jackson at our Joint Force Headquarters.
I got you. From Meridian originally.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
All right, let's talk about this because I don't think people understand the massive when this stuff first started happening, and I guess the phone started ringing at the National Guard head honchos, and they said, "Look, we might need your help."
Right.
And the undertaking was my wife and I got ours at the National Guard. I think it was in Canton.
Okay.
So tell me a little bit how this came about.
So, and you're correct. This really was a historic use of the National Guard.
Mm-hmm.
And this started, the first thing that really emerged, a requirement that was needed was once a pandemic and the panic set in, the personal protective equipment, the normal supply chains for that were just exhausted. And the only way the state could get personal protective equipment for healthcare providers was from the national stockpile, which was sent directly to the state, but then had to be distributed out to the hospitals.
Did they come in Jackson? Or
yes, sir. It was sent into the health department warehouse here in Jackson, but then it needed to be distributed across the state. So that was the first requirement where we were needed, and we began to and continued for months and months to push that equipment throughout
They included
the state.
what beside the mask?
So masks, disposable gloves, disposable gowns, face shields. Just think about all the normal things you've seen the healthcare workers working.
Was this all on a computer somewhere, or how did you guys do this? Because not only did you have to distribute them, but you had to figure out exactly what the requests were.
Exactly. So the health department would receive requests, and the Mississippi Emergency Management Agency would receive those requests, and they would let us know what needed to go where, and we pushed it there, as quickly as possible. And very soon after, that was on the 20th of March, 2020. So that's really was when we first came into this. And just a few days later, the requirement to test and identify positive COVID cases kind of emerged. So then we became part of the testing mission. And
getting the Pfizer first of all, I think, wasn't it?
Well, it was test mission. So our first, where we were engaged for a long time, was with COVID testing. There wasn't COVID testing available, so the National Guard was really the main use to do that, and we did that in communities and long-term care facilities and throughout the state. But by the time it was over, we did over 225,000 COVID-19 tests.
225,956.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Across the state.
That's correct.
Those were the tests.
That's tests. That was COVID-19 test.
And then the dosage?
So for the vaccine, we began the vaccine mission in January of this year and ended up giving over 765,000 doses of vaccine.
That is amazing.
It is.
Across the entire state.
Yes, sir.
That's 765,000 needles.
That is correct. That's individual shots. Yes, sir.
Individual
that's correct.
shots.
So that's right. So that was really our three primary missions in this were the logistics with PPE, COVID-19 testing for many, many months, and then the vaccine mission.
And it sounds so simple here, but it's not. I mean, if you start breaking it down, you say, okay, you got to find the logistic place to do it. You got to acquire some permission to be there. You have to have the personnel. So they were called up. And
Right.
how long did they stay there?
That's correct. So we started small. The requirement was small. I think we started around 100 people. But by the time we were at full vaccine operations, logistics, and testing, we grew to about 1,200, a task force of about 1,200
Across
folks.
the state?
Yes, sir, across the state.
And did they have to have some specialized training, or were they already in the medical field?
So some were medical, but we trained everybody.
To give a shot?
Yes, sir, for the most part, to give a shot or to give a test. I mean, we brought folks in, put them through about a week-long training. So it took a little bit, to call folks in, get them trained, and then get them organized into teams and out in the field to do this.
I was impressed on the first shot and the second shot, certainly on the first shot. There were some checks and balances, checks and double checks before we actually got that needle in our arm. Our name was on the list. They knew exactly which one we were going to have and all of that. But there was a lot that went into that.
Right. There was. And you know, I think one thing to really highlight is this was a interagency response. It was a National Guard with the Mississippi Emergency Management Agency and then with the Mississippi State Department of Health as the lead agency. So they really provided the overall direction for the response. The Mississippi Emergency Management Agency resourced the tents, the heaters, everything that you saw on site was provided through MEMA, and then the National Guard, you know, did our part.
Some of these men and women were away from their families for how long? I mean, would they stay in hotel rooms, or what happened there?
Yeah, they absolutely did. So a lot of folks, you know, it just wasn't possible to work them within a commuting distance of their home. So they stayed in hotel rooms throughout the state. And another thing to really emphasize, it was very important to General Bulls that we continue our military training concurrently with this response. So we did that, and you ended up with a lot of folks that worked a vaccine site all week long, you know, went to training on the weekend, right back to the vaccine site on the weekend. So it was a really huge accomplishment to not lose any military readiness while we continue this response.
I would imagine, were there any 911 calls during the shots across the state? I'm sure there were somewhere. Somebody fainted or something like that.
There were some. So the State Department of Health had nurses on site. Mm-hmm. So whenever we did have you know, that rare occurrence of an adverse reaction, they attended to that, and if needed, you know, called emergency medical services. But it was really a rare occurrence, and it was handled every time.
Was it more difficult for those getting that second shot just to track them too, or it was no difference in the first shot?
Really no difference. I mean, you know, of course it was incumbent on the individual to make that appointment and come get the shot. But as far as the process, it was exactly the same.
When did you guys pull up stakes and leave?
So the governor announced last month that the Mississippi National Guard's mission would end on the 15th of July. So the 15th of July was actually our last day on mission.
Just recently, that was it?
Yes, sir. That's right.
We don't want to see you back there either.
Well, hopefully not. You know, all the things that we were doing, there's been another resource put in place to do those things. The vaccine's widely available, testing's widely available. So I think hopefully we're in good shape now.
It is Lieutenant Colonel Jeremy Parker from the Mississippi National Guard. Logistics totals. I love this. Medical and non-medical pieces of PPE delivered 58,500,000.
That's right. A very substantial amount of equipment was dispersed throughout the state.
6,099 total deliveries. You guys keep numbers, don't you?
We do, yes,
How many
sir.
miles driven?
Yes, sir. It looks like 665,000 miles. So a very substantial logistical effort. Of course, logistics is something the military excels at.
I was going to say,
you know, so that was really in our wheelhouse.
Actually,
to do that.
to prove that point, 665,868 miles to be specific.
Right. That's right.
Final thoughts, sir.
We appreciate the opportunity to serve the state of Mississippi during this response. It was great. We can't thank everybody enough that came out and, you know, really encouraged our folks along the way and sent positive feedback in. It was a good mission.
Hats off to you and all, because you guys did a fabulous job.
Well, thank you, sir.